Hey everybody, this is Grace. I'm going to tell a story, and it's important. I think this is my new thing to talk about. Okay, so imagine it. I'll go back and forth between saying you and I don't mean you and all that, but just imagine that there's a family get together. You find out, I want to say you, don't mean you, but you find out that there's a family get together, actually a family wedding. Somebody in the family is going to get wedding. It's the next generation after yours, and all of them, everybody lives in Texas, but at different parts of Texas, and the wedding is going to be held in Texas, and nobody plans on flying. They plan on driving. It's just their way. Now, your generation, you and your generation, you're all in your 50s. And the person who's getting married is the next generation, like I said. So, so everybody knows it's going to be a June wedding, and it's 6 months before they found out about it. And then it comes up, of course, Well, somebody finds out what one of the siblings did, and it's something else. But a little background is needed. When all of them, I'm saying your family, to imagine it. Oh boy, this is not easy as you think it would be. But say the family, it was rough. Growing up was rough. They didn't have enough money basically to buy everything needed, and have enough money for clothing for the kids at 5. Not enough money for groceries. Everybody had to eat very little. And although they got help from one set of grandparents, it's still not enough. And it was rough. And then when all of them went out on their own, it was rough then too. And then when they got in their marriages, it was still rough for all of each and every one. But then by the time they were in their 50s, it was no longer that rough. They had enough money, comfortable enough. Okay, not wealthy, but comfortable enough. Except for one. Well, all of them did, but except one of them, everybody knew her to be rather miserly. Okay, she didn't want to spend her money on anything. She did not live anywhere. Well, she didn't want to spend her money. She was a hoarder of money. Okay, and then what they found out was about her and what she did for her and one of her adult children, to go to this wedding. And what she did is despicable. She started at 6 months. Once she heard about there was going to be this wedding, she decided that she was going to stop paying for her own groceries, and that way all the money that they would spend on groceries, instead they would go to food banks and get free food. And that's what they did. They had some that was, I think most people these days, at least, I could be wrong, many people that have, comfortable enough, they usually have some stocked up, some things they wouldn't have to buy. Maybe not. I don't have any actual statistics on that. But I can imagine it. People have some stuff that they stocked up on. So she'd go to food bank, each one of them would go, and they'd basically lie, saying that they didn't have enough money. One would go one day, one would the other day, whatever was the situation, so they could stock up. Now, I don't know about any of you, but food banks are for people who need it. I mean, seriously. Food banks are for people who need it, not for people who are doing this. What she's doing is she doesn't want to pay for the trip and I should have mentioned that. And she's going to save up that money to go on that vacation. Let's see, as a vacation, to go to the wedding. And and stay in a nice place and show, act like she's she's showing off by living, her life and staying in a hotel and a nice hotel in there, whatever, to act like they're high class, they're all comfortable. Like I said, nobody's wealthy. But she's going to take all that money over 6 months that she would be spending on groceries, and she likes to eat high off the hog, And so I like that expression. But I mean, it's just despicable. This is for people. These food banks are for people like. Imagine how many children's mouths she took food out of, basically. They didn't get to eat that food, because she wanted to go on her vacation. And that's what these food banks are for. But she had that attitude that this is entitlement, that, if she needed her money for something else, that's what she does. And her daughter, and let's say it's a daughter. Her daughter's the same way. She was all for it. That's what it's for. Okay. I don't think people are that ignorant who go to these food banks. So ignorant that they don't know. These are for like people who have children and they can't feed them. There are people who are on hit hard times. Lost their job. Single person, with no kids, or single parent with kid, or kids, whatever it is, or elderly people on, disability or Social Security or whatever, that don't have the funds. People who are elderly and they have to spend their extra money on their health, and then they don't have enough money for groceries. This is what it's for. But there's people out there who have this sense of entitlement, or they just don't really. This is my opinion. Read the disclaimers in the description box below this video on YouTube. These are my opinions, and really, it's despicable that somebody's going to take the groceries, away, and no. I just think that is a despicable person who would do that. But then that's what you found out. You found out this person. Would you confront them? A family member? Now take it away from being a family member. You could say if it were your family member, or if it was somebody you work with, somebody you go to church with. I mean, come on. Somebody online makes videos. Would you confront them? Would you tell them your opinion? No matter who would you and who would you not? Would you not anybody, or would you tell all of them? That this is wrong what they're doing. I mean, what I see most is that these children who don't have food in their tummy. I did a lot of substitute teaching when I was a career student at university. I did a lot of after I got my first degree, I started doing substitute teaching, and I live in a wealthy county, so it wasn't like there was a whole lot of dirt poor or anything like that, but there were some. Okay, and when the kids got there in the morning, there was breakfast. They were all. I like to work. I prefer to work with those in the areas that were not as privileged. Okay, they were underprivileged. They were not as privileged at all. Really, some of them not at all. And the first thing they had was breakfast once they got there. And they let them in. They go right to breakfast. And I think some of them paid for it, some of them didn't. No biggie, Lunch, the same thing. But you still can imagine what is it like for them in summertime? The ones whose parents can't afford it. They're trying hard, they're working. Like say it's a single mom. she's working to, it was no fault of her own. Let's not blame victims. You know, she has a deadbeat ex-husband, won't pay. And she's trying to make it. But no, somebody else wants to go on vacation, so they go to the food bank and take all the best stuff because they expect that's where they are. They're that class of people, and they're not taking that crap. They're going to take the best stuff there. How low life. You know, that's my opinion. I don't like using names. So strike the names. I just can't. I do see it as despicable behaviors. Okay, seriously, despicable. Taking food when you don't need it. I'm not saying you, but you know, when that person doesn't need it. You know, to be given to them when there are other people who do. They need it. They may, I mean, I know I've been through rough times in my life. Yeah, I have definitely. The first rough time that I remember in my life was when my dad, 6'7", built like a linebacker, flat-footed, and he had been an accountant, but he just felt like he wanted to be out in the world, so he became a carpenter, painter. I mean, I'm talking painting houses, inside and out, on the wood houses back then, in those days. But he's flat-footed, and he lost a leg to diabetes. And then that's when things changed, even though our grandparents, one set of them they were really they were wealthy enough, and they did help, but it still wasn't enough. Like I described, still it wasn't enough. And but I don't recall them ever going to anything like a food bank, because I don't think food banks existed. Okay, there may have been some, you know, in Texas, but it wasn't very well known. I did actually. There was, during that time, I was in, actually I wasn't a kid, I was in junior high. We had junior high back then, not middle school. But I recall the best cheese in the world. I ate it, the best cheese in the world. You got it, government cheese. It was, I'm telling you, this government cheese, oh my God. The most delicious stuff I'd ever tasted in my life, really. Still to this day. Still. I mean, I like Gouda, but that's about it. But these days, Gouda tastes plastic too. This cheese was real. It was real. I'm telling you, people. I think some people know it. And how many of us remember generic? They called them generic. Big cans of like corn, stuff like that. Yeah, but I think that was it. I think that was I don't remember. I think it was given. I could be lying. No matter if I try to remember, I wouldn't remember it right, probably. Okay, but anyway, yeah. I mean, I've been through rough times in my life. You betcha, but I have never, ever taken anything like that. I've been to food bank. I was so disgusted. Honestly, this was not food meant for anybody. It was expired stuff, expired, everything expired. Pretty much everything. And it was, and the weird thing was from a wealthy, in the wealthy areas. What's going on there? Wealthy areas and wealthy people. But I think they were spending their money doing other things. Yeah. The money that was for donations. Because the food was disgusting. mean, just looking at it, like, a lot of it was just bread stuff, you know. Some would say paste, some of it was pastry, if that was what some would call pastries, but it was disgusting. Expired, too old, who knows. I didn't look close enough to see how much of it had really expired. You know what I'm saying? Mold or whatever was growing on it. I didn't check. And then I think they seldom gave meat, but when they did, it was deer meat. I guess it was real. I mean, I guess it was somebody had a spouse or something like to go hunting, and that's what they sold. Not sold, that's what they had. These were free. Yeah. Anyway, it was overall disgusting. I could say more, and I'm going to leave it out. Anyway, I think I said enough for this. What would you say something to them? I'm going to do more on this type of thing, by the way, because it's really bothering me. A lot of stuff bothering me lately. What people doing, taking advantage of stuff, and then justifying it. Justify why they're doing stuff that's despicable. I think quite a bit of it is because there's nobody out there saying, that's despicable. Is there anybody who's saying, why are you bragging about taking money from the mouths of babes, really, when it comes down to it? Children. Just so you can go on vacation, or just so you can go and spend your money on, you know, jewelry, or new shirts each season. You know, maybe not expensive, but at least new. Oh, I don't want to go to work. Well, I have a job, but hey, I want more. But I have to dress the part. I have to change my clothes every few months. No, you don't. No, you don't. Those of us who've been there, done that, no, you don't. I mean, don't go wearing, I can't say tattered these days because tattered became a fashion. But, you know, I wouldn't say, I don't tell anybody what to do, but I'd say, you know, me, don't go dressed like you just came off the floor. Your clothing just came off the floor. You've worn it for years, and let me go go through it, see which one doesn't smell. Like some people would. No, none of that kind of stuff. Some people I see what they dress like, and they have that high sense of entitlement, and they're dressed like, oh my goodness. I'm not a person who dresses, you know, I don't dress up. I just wear what's comfortable and doesn't look bad. Well, maybe sometimes I look bad, but no, I'm not going to go to work I never was one to go to work looking like crap, you know, and having dirty clothes on and old and torn and whatever. No, you know. I mean, some people they have to. Some people that's all they have at first. You know, they go, and what, these people are going to go and take, I'm going to go to Goodwill. I have enough money to buy, you know, stuff at the store, but I'm going to go to Goodwill and take all the good ones. Really? I'm serious. That's what I feel like saying to a lot of this. Really? Seriously. Do people think beyond their own noses? If somebody has the money to buy this stuff, then they're going to go to places. I've never bought any clothing from Goodwill, I don't think, ever. But I have so many chemical allergies as it is. Yeah, I just can't just do that because of the chemical allergies. Like I said, I walk into these places, anything like even an antique store or something, I am knocked down by the smell. I'm serious. Like, whoa, I gotta get out of here. Can't handle it, you know, so. But people who need, I mean, I've heard people go to these Goodwills. There's one down here. Maybe one day I will. I've done it before in the past. go in and take a video of it. But like I said, I walk in and just the smell of all the things, the soaps, the whatever on everything just knocks me down. But not literally knocks me down, but bad enough. But I've heard stories about people finding really good stuff. This is a wealthy county. They could find that. And people who are starting off, or they're having to go back out and go back into the workforce, whatever is the situation, they should be able to go there and buy them without people, these hoarders who have the money, they just don't want to spend it. You get the point. Anyway, I'm wrapping up. Talk to you on another video. Bye.